These are 11 steps you should know when subdividing your investment property for profit. Step number 1. Know what the heck land subdivision you are actually doing. Now there are 5 LSD, which stands for land subdivision, and no, it's not the psychedelic drug. So there is Torrens title, there is strata title, there's dual occupancy, there's battle act subdivision, and lastly, rural subdivision. Now Torrens title is your most common subdivision, which is a piece of land and you cut it in half, and then Torrens title 1 and Torrens title 2. And strata title is basically you have a piece of land and you want to build a set of townhouses 1, 2, and 3, or you have a big block of land and you want to do off the plan units, up to 60 to 100 units. And dual occupancy subdivision is basically a house with 2 entries and a common area. For example, in Queensland, there's a lot of dual occupancy properties. And number 4, battle act subdivision is similar to Torrens title, but basically you have one main house and the other main house is at the end of this house and it looks like a battle axe over here. You can shade it. And rural subdivision finally is your farmland, rural properties, and it's very big, like acres and hectares. And once you work out what the heck you're doing in terms of subdivision, you go to number 2, which is work out the minimum land size you can subdivide the land at, and also the type of zoning, which means you got to ask bloody council. And part of step number 2, you got to be aware of the cost that council's got to charge you, because this little thing over here, that's a grub, because council is a grub. These greedy grubs will charge you 50k minimum in New South Wales for subdivision, Victoria 30 to 50k. In Queensland, the council is a bigger grub, $60,000 to $90,000, WA $50,000 to $90,000, and the most generous grub, which is South Australia, it's $20,000 to $25,000 per subdivision. And step number 3, you got to engage your Avengers team, which is surveyors, engineers, town planners, architects, and legal advisors. For example, surveyors and engineers will work out the topography, the soil type, the vegetation access, and also in the engineers, easements, heritage sites, environmental factors. And step number 4 is once you've done a concept design and paid a lot of money to these professionals, is to meet with the grubs with your concept design and do your pitch. And step number 5 is once these council grubs give you a bit of a head nod to say, hey, your pitch is okay, which basically means, give me some money under the table, well, you can then submit a development application, which is also known as a DA. Now, the DA process is when you fill in a bunch of forms and then hand over the check of the money required and then wait for the bloody council to come back. Usually, 10 to 12 months. And during that 10 to 12 months for step number 6 is review and approve. Basically, the DA is submitted, they give you feedback, you make changes, and then that loop goes around until they finally approve it. And step number 7 is basically before you begin construction, you have to build access to your new land. For example, you might build new roads to the subdivision land, or you might build a driveway. And then you gotta make sure that your land is connected to utilities, for example, sewage, electricity, telecommunication. And step number 8 is the construction process. For example, do you need to knock down the old house to, do the new place? And also, do you need to grade the land, which is flatten the land? And then step number 9 is get a final surveyor to measure the new lot. And with that information, submit the lot ID to the land registry for approval. And step number 10 is obtain new titles from the government registry. For example, your new lot will have its own title ID, which means with a new title ID on the new lot, you can legally sell it independently to someone else and make some money. But again, how you make money depends on what type of land subdivision you're doing. For example, is it Torrens title? Is it strata title? Is it dual occupancy? Is it battle act subdivision? Is it rural subdivision? And step number 11, remember the council greedy grubs? Well, the cousin of the council greedy grub is the ATO grubs, and prepare for them. Because the profit you gain from the land subdivision is treated as a commercial activity. And because you're seen as trading for a profit in terms of this land subdivision, you are not 50% exempt from CGT. Which if you compare to buying an investment property and you held it for more than 12 months and you sold it, you do get 50% exemption on CGT tax. So having said this, in hindsight, swap step 11 to step 1 in terms of this 11 steps. You do want to speak to your accountant to make sure you know the pros and cons in terms of tax implications when doing land subdivision for a profit. So that's my 11 steps. Jump in the comments and let me know what you think.